The X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell is largely an opinion talk show. All opinions, comments, or statements of fact expressed by Rob McConnell's guests are strictly their own and are not to be construed as those of the X-Zone Radio Show or endorsed in any manner by Rob McConnell, Relmar McConnell Media Company, the X-Zone Broadcast Network, its affiliated networks, stations, employees, or advertisers.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X-Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
1-877-528-8255 is toll-free throughout the U.S., Canada, Alaska, and Hawaii. My name is Rob McConnell, and this is the X-Zone on the Talkstar Radio Network. My guest this hour is Stan Romanek. He is the center of what may be the most documented extraterrestrial contact case of all time. He has appeared on Larry King Live, Fox News, Entertainment Tonight, and has been featured in several documentaries on ABC, NBC, and the Sci-Fi Channel, as well as other numerous radio and television programs. He lives with his wife near Denver and continues to experience ongoing strange phenomenon. He's the author of Close Encounters, Scientific Proof UFOs and Aliens Are Real. And Stan Romanek, welcome to the X-Zone. And Stan, I was wondering if you could tell our audience about some of the encounters that you've been experiencing.
Sure, and thank you for having me.
It's my great pleasure, sir.
My experiences probably started when I was a child. But, you know, when you're young, you don't really put two and two together till something happens in your adulthood, and that's exactly how it happened with me.
Go ahead, Stan. I'm sorry.
There's a delay, so it's kind of hard to. I can hear myself echo too, so it's rather bizarre. But my first real encounter happened in December of 2000, and my wife at the time lived in Nebraska. I lived in Colorado, and I wanted her to come visit me. We had met online, and we were kind of doing the long-distance dating thing. And I thought I'd go up to the mountains and videotape the surrounding area and send her a little care package to entice her to come visit me. But I never actually made it to my destination. On the way up, I took the back roads, and on the way up to the spot I wanted to go videotape, I noticed there were some cars pulled over to the side of the road. There were probably about 30, I'd say, cars altogether. And everybody had gotten out of their cars, and they were looking up to the south above some power lines. And when I looked to see what they were looking at, I noticed an object, I'm going to say maybe 60 to 100 feet above the power lines themselves. And at first I thought it was a hot air balloon, but it turned out to be a UFO, and that's pretty much what started the whole thing.
What did the UFO look like, Stan?
It had multiple spheres, basically. It was a kind of almost a flattened 30-foot diameter sphere on top with 6 smaller spheres rotating counterclockwise on the bottom, which I had never seen before. I mean, when people talk about UFOs, they always talk about discs or big triangles. This was something completely different. In fact, as I got close to this UFO, I realized it was metallic, and it started pacing the van I was in, which scared the heck out of me because, number one, I didn't believe in this stuff when it happened. And there were lots of other people driving by this thing. Why it singled out me, I have no idea. But it scared me to the point where I decided to speed up, and I was probably doing, 80 down a 20-mile-an-hour road. And, I was thinking to myself, well, nobody's going to believe me. And I realized that at the time I had my camcorder with me. I realized I had my camcorder, and I pulled over to get a shot of this thing. And when I did so, it accelerated from about 200 feet to about 1,000 feet in, a millisecond probably. I couldn't even follow it with my eyes.
Stan, stand by. You and I have to take our first commercial break. Exonation, Stan Romanek is our special guest. www.stanromanek.com is his website, and Stan and I will be back on the other side of this commercial break in 2 minutes as the X Zone continues live and around the world on the Talkstar Radio Network from our studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada.
Take a step back in time and discover old Florida cuisine at Marsh Landing Restaurant in Fellsmere. Enjoy delicacies such as frog legs, gator tail, catfish, and swamp cabbage, or enjoy the more traditional cuisine like hand-cut Angus steaks, ribs, and seafood. Join us for breakfast with a southern flair featuring sweet potato pancakes, biscuits, and gravy, and much more. Planning a party? Marsh Landing's private dining room can accommodate groups from 8 to 80 people. While you're visiting, enjoy the historic pictures, artifacts, and stories that line the walls. Marsh Landing is truly a unique experience. Marsh Landing Restaurant, 44 North Broadway in historic Fellsmere, or visit marshlandingrestaurant.com. Marsh Landing, old Florida cuisine at its best. Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X Zone broadcast network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365.
This is Johanna Carroll, host of Dialogue with Divinity on the X Zone Broadcast Network. While walking along Kaanapali Beach in Maui this past year, I kept discovering all these shells and coral in the shape of hearts. My dialogue with Divinity was very simple. Do you want me to do a retreat to heal people's hearts in Maui next year? And of course, the answer was yes. As a master spiritual teacher, I am offering you a neat retreat called Rise, May 8th through the 12th, 2017, and the chance of a lifetime to rest at a 5-star resort for 5 days and experience a spiritual renewal of your heart and soul. Kaanapali is one of the top 5 beaches in the world. This stunning resort has undergone a $40 million renovation. I walked the entire property, checked out the room choices on your behalf, and I must say it is stunning. Our conference room faces the ocean with sliding glass doors. Maui is known as Mother Maui because it is a soft, gentle, healing energy. In the embrace of Mother Maui, you will feel yourself rising from the limitations of an ordinary life to an extraordinary journey of peace, bliss, and harmony. A greater sense of clarity. Our Rise Retreat ignites renewal in the sacred elements of air, water, earth, fire, and wind. There's plenty of free time to enjoy all that Maui has to offer. A small deposit is required now to reserve your space, as this retreat, it will sell out. For more details, please go to johannacarroll.com and register today. Aloha, and I'll see you in mystical Maui.
Welcome back, Exonation. By the way, I gave you the wrong title of Stan's book. My apologies for that, Stan. He's the author of Messages, the world's most documented extraterrestrial contact story, and it's available from our good friends at Llewellyn Publications. Stan, have you seen more than one UFO in your time? And if so, could you describe the different types of UFOs that you've seen?
Well, it seems like whatever these things are, they seem to like to harass me. And what's interesting about my case is more apparent than most other cases is the fact that most of the stuff that happens seems to happen when there's only a lot of people around, so that I don't have to explain myself. I've seen everything from discs to spheres to orbs, the size of your fist that glow red and follow you around everywhere, to you name it, just about everything there is out there I've seen. Is there
any reason why you would be picked by the visitors to this planet?
That's the thing I always ask myself, and that's the question everybody asks me. Honestly, even to this day, I don't know, but it seems to be genetic. It seems to run in families. I recently learned that my older brother was an experiencer, oddly enough, until he had his vasectomy, and then they stopped picking on him. And then my sister is an experiencer, and I am an experiencer. So it seems to run in families. What it is that they're interested in, I have no idea.
Now, have you ever been aboard a spacecraft?
I can't really tell you for sure. Was I on a spacecraft, a UFO? Was I in a room somewhere underground? Mm-hmm. I know I've been somewhere. I have recollections of being on a moving object that seemed to be in space, close to a very large planet that I'm guessing could either be Jupiter or Saturn. But is that really what happened? I honestly, I'm not 100% sure.
Do you have any evidence of having been examined by ETs?
With my first, I've been probably, I'm thinking, 8 times altogether I've been abducted that I remember.
Wow.
And each time I've come back with either trace evidence or, I came back once holding something in my hand, and or scoop marks that fluoresced under black light. They seem to be interested in people genetically, and they don't care how they go about testing you either.
What kind of trace evidence do you have?
Well, there's evidence that has shown up in our yard. When I came back during, I think it was my second or third abduction experience, I woke up outside. 20-degree weather, no clothes on.
Oh, my gosh.
Locked from, all the doors were locked from the inside, including the windows. It took me a good half hour to wake up my wife so she could come get me. And I actually came back with a broken rib, and there was a circle in our grass that had microscopic bits of meteorite dust that they have no idea how it got there. And when they brought an EMF meter and a compass, the compass and EMF meter would go crazy. And also, I came back holding something called elemental bismuth. I was really sick to my stomach, and I didn't want to throw up on my wife, so I put my hand in my mouth, and when I did so, I realized I was actually grasping something. And I dropped it onto the kitchen countertop, and it was sent off to scientists to be examined, and that's what they determined it was. The interesting thing was that the elemental bismuth had been in a molten form, probably heated to a few thousand degrees before it solidified into the chunks that I somehow got a hold of.
How have your experiences affected your family?
Well, deeply. It took me at least 4 years to come to terms with this, and I suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder from it. My family has been, affected pretty much the same way I have. When this first started happening, believe it or not, it happened even before we got married, and I'm surprised my wife decided to marry me anyhow. But
that's true love.
Yeah, let me tell you, I would be so lost without her. But it got to the point where we couldn't sleep. My stepchildren were being affected. Even to this day, my twin stepdaughters and my stepson can't go to sleep without the lights being on. You know, there was a point where my stepson was so afraid to sleep that he'd bury himself under 12, 13, 14 pillows just to feel safe. And then we've had to move, you know, at least 8 times just from the harassment and, you know, getting beat up and shot at and stuff. So
Wait a sec, hold on here. Let's backtrack here. Shot at and beat up?
Yes.
Why?
One of the things that has happened in my case is the harassment. Not only have I had to deal with the abduction experience and the weird stuff that goes on around us, we've also had to deal with our phones being tapped. We found wiretaps in our house. We've been threatened. I was shot at a year ago and put into somewhat protective custody. I couldn't go out of the house for quite a while. We recently just got a threat that everybody involved in my group is going to be assassinated, either one at a time or in what they're going to make look like a terrorist attack.
Now, which group are you talking about?
Pardon me?
You said the members of your group. Which group is this?
I've got, you know, some of the top scientists and researchers involved in my case. Because so much has happened, there's a bunch of people that are, and they've all become pretty much family to us because they've been with us for so long. For instance, the University of Nebraska. I've got MIT graduate physicists involved in my case. Some of our stuff has been sent to Cal Berkeley, Harvard, Princeton, you name it, all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, the main researchers have just stuck around just because this is an important case and they want to get the word out also. And there's more and more stuff to examine because stuff doesn't stop.
When was the last time you had an encounter?
Last time I had an encounter, I was in Kansas City, Missouri doing a conference, and we saw a rather impressive UFO that came down, and I flashed my light at the UFO, and it flashed back.
So how do you communicate with these ETs or these UFOs?
It's not, a lot of people think I have some kind of special power. I don't have any power, and I'm not psychic either. I'm probably as psychic as a peanut. But whatever these things are, it's not like they perform like circus monkeys. I can't call them in anyhow.
Mm-hmm.
They just show up, and they seem to be wherever I am. I don't know why. I have no answers for you, but over and over again, it seems to happen. When I'm in, for instance, I did a big talk in Denver, and my presentations are usually about 4 hours, and I give them a 15-minute break after 2 hours. And, people went outside to smoke, and huge UFOs were above everybody at this talk that I was doing, and it seemed to happen.
Did anybody take photographs of these two huge UFOs that were over the area where you were talking?
Yeah, I haven't gotten them yet, but they're sending them to me. I mean, you can go on. I've got a website. You can go on the website and see some of this stuff too.
Mm-hmm.
Post what I can.
So with all these scientists that are working with you on your case, what have they come up with so far?
They're mystified. They don't understand. It seems like whatever these things are, they're giving me evidence. And I had an experience after my first UFO. That was in 2000. I had another experience September 30th, 2001, where, I lived in Lakewood, Colorado, which is a suburb of Denver, Colorado, a very large suburb, a lot of people. I was coming home from work, and I thought it was a police helicopter, shining its spotlight on me, but a beam of light hit the road right next to my van. It narrowed and swept over my van, and, like any polite citizen, I rolled down the window and waved, thinking it was, a police helicopter. But I didn't hear any helicopter sounds, and I noticed the guy that was following behind me had stopped dead in his tracks and got out of his car and was looking above my van, and as I went through the intersection, everybody had gotten out of their car and they were all looking above my van. And I noticed this huge red blinking UFO, and it floated over a park called Old Stonehouse Park, and there were people there having parties and stuff, and other people that had video cameras, and they all watched this happen. You know, there were hundreds and hundreds of people that witnessed this.
Did it make the local news that night?
Oh yeah, you bet. You bet.
Have you contacted the government, the Air Force, Homeland Security?
Yeah, no. You know, I tried in the beginning. They just blew me off or laughed at me, which is really sad. You know, from what I understand, the United States is one of the last countries to open their records about UFOs. But no, I gave up on that a long time ago.
Even with the evidence?
I even tried, you know, going to a psychologist because I was hoping I was just crazy. And they just pretty much blew me off too. And then I started realizing that what I was going through is a real phenomenon.
Listen, you and I have to take a commercial break with the news. Stan, please stand by. Stan Romanek's our special guest. He's the author of Messages, the world's most documented extraterrestrial contact story. And it's available from our good friends at Llewellyn Publications. Stan's website is stanromanek.com, StanRomanek.com. And his book is available online, or you can go to Llewellyn Publishing, www.llewellyn.com. My name is Rob McConnell. This is the X-Zone, and we'll be back on the other side of the news with Stan Romanek as we continue live and around the world from our studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, right here on Talkstar. Don't go away. Back after this break.
This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X-Zone Broadcast Network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember, 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365.
Stan Romanek is our special guest. He is the author of Messages, the world's most documented extraterrestrial contact story. And the national spotlight has followed Stan Romanek's accounts of alien abductions ever since the release of his home video in 2008, of which he insists is footage of an extraterrestrial being. For more than 5 years, reputable scientists and scholars have studied the strange formulas and equations Romanek claims were given to him during his encounters, and have come to the same conclusion. The complexity of these equations and diagrams are genuine and may hold the clues to the secret of zero-point energy and even interstellar travel. Stan, thanks very much for joining us tonight here on the X-Zone, and I was wondering if you could tell us about the being that you videotaped.
Sure. That's actually just one small piece of a very big amount of evidence that I have, and I gave that evidence, that little piece, to someone to use in something called the Denver Extraterrestrial Initiative. It's a grassroots project to try to get the government to finally agree or admit that there's extraterrestrials. Now, that's how it got out into the media. It's started when I lived in Nebraska. I eventually got married to the woman I had met online, and I moved to Nebraska to be with her. And at the time, I have twin stepdaughters. They're 20 years old now, but at the time they were young teenagers. And I was fixing my computer because it had been hacked into, and I was staying up pretty late, and I went up to get a glass of water from the kitchen. I noticed movement out of one of the windows. Well, first thing I thought of was, it could have been one of the, neighbor kids playing a joke, but the next day it happened, I realized that it might have been a peeping Tom. In fact, this went on for almost 2 weeks. I called the police. I let all the neighbors know. I even set up little twigs and sticks as a trap, so if they stepped on them, I could hear, them coming, and I had a bat by the door, so I'd grab the bat and run outside. But I could never catch this peeping Tom, and one of the scientists involved in my case suggested that, he said, well, you have a video camera, camcorder. It has night shot on it. Why don't you, next time you see this movement out of the window, just set up your camera, put on night shot, turn on the lights, and go to bed, see if you can catch this peeping Tom. Well, I did exactly that. I, saw movement. I put on the camera. Instead of going to bed, I went to the bathroom and just kind of sat on that edge of the bathtub because I wanted to see if I could catch this thing. Well, there were two really bright flashes of lights, and suddenly, I got up and I looked out of the bathroom door and I saw this head pop down. I'm thinking, yes, I got this son of a gun. Well, I went to look out the window and I saw what I thought was a child running to the backyard, and it was a real bright full moon, I thought, anyhow. Come to find out, there was no full moon. But I saw this thing running toward the backyard, and it clipped one of the bushes as it ran. And it stopped and looked back at me, and, man, I got to tell you, his eyes were not normal. And I scared and jumped around like a little girl. In fact, when you watch the video, most people laugh because it surprises me, to say the least.
So what happened?
Well, when I rewound the tape and reviewed it, there was a creature looking in my window, and you could see his eyes move, you can see its facial features, and it doesn't look human at all. It's big, huge head, very big, dark eyes. What's interesting is you can see the infrared or the IR from the camcorder reflecting off its retinas. And, I've gotten a lot of flack for this one. All the debunkers will tell you, it's fake, and there's one group locally that's all they do is they debunk everybody. That's how they get attention. They're just real sad people. But they'll say, oh, it's computer generated. Well, this video's been sent to some of the top people to be analyzed, and they'll say the same thing. It's, in camera. Mm-hmm. There is no special effects in it, and it is what it is. Is it somebody in a mask? I don't think so. I really don't. I saw this thing run away. I know what I captured on video.
Now, you said the infrared was caught on their eyelids or on their pupils.
Yes. You know how when you, a lot of times, like even with cats, you have your
remote controller. Yeah.
And you're videotaping with your IR on or your infrared on, your night shot on. Their eyes, their pupils will glow like you've got a deer in the headlights. And that's what this thing was like. You could actually see its pupils just light up. It's really crazy.
1-877-528-8255 is toll free throughout the U.S., Canada, Alaska, and Hawaii. Stan Romanek is our guest. His website is www.stanromanek.com. Stan, what kind of work were you doing prior to all of this, or are you still doing the same kind of work after you've had all these experiences?
I'm too busy with my book and with the radio shows and stuff. I pretty much do this. I am it's funny because I was such a skeptic. Now I seem to be the poster child for the bizarre. But I fixed computers for a living. I was also in corporate management and retail management for that.
Now, prior to your sighting going back, your initial sighting, I believe, was in 2004?
2004. My first sighting was in 2000.
Oh, it was in 2000, I'm sorry. Prior to your first sighting in the year 2000, had you had any experiences with paranormal phenomena of any kind?
You know, when I was a child, some stuff happened. Now, I grew up in the military. I grew up in the Air Force, the United States Air Force, and my dad was in charge of security for. At least that's what he thinks he did. You know, he won't tell me, and nobody can ever find out. My dad had some top secret clearance, I guess. But we were stationed in North Dakota in the late 60s, early 70s, during the time that the UFOs flew over the missile bases and changed the codes around and flew over some B-52 bombers. Now, my father would go back between Minot and Grand Forks, these two main missile bases in North Dakota, and they tracked one of the UFOs to our small town of Northwood, North Dakota. And it actually hovered above a water tower there for quite a long time. And you know, it was always a family story that my dad came out and with some soldiers and surrounded this water tower. My oldest brother remembers. And you know, after that just kind of faded away. And then I remember after my first regression, I remember that there was a strange lady that kind of always showed up at certain times in my life, very bizarre looking, really huge almond-shaped slanted eyes with almost day-glow blue colored pupils. And prior to that, you know, when you're a kid, you don't think about these things. But other than that, that's just about it. I really didn't believe in this stuff.
Who did your regressions?
There was a local person named Deborah Lindemann who's very good, and then after that, a Dr. Leo Sprinkle, who's University of Wyoming, very famous, very nice gentleman, very smart too.
And what was their conclusion?
That this stuff is real. You know, my first regression, I had nowhere else to go. I was at this point, thought I was having a nervous breakdown or going crazy. I didn't want to. I tried going to a psychologist, but you know, they just blew me off. And I went to, my friend conned me into going to my local UFO group, which was MUFON, Mutual UFO Network. And they suggested, you know, if you're having such a hard time with this, why don't you get regressed? It's like, well, I didn't know if I believed in it or not, and I thought, well, okay, I'll try it. I was a little nervous because there are all kinds of horror stories that they can control your mind and stuff, which is not the case at all. But I went under hypnotic regression.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember during my first abduction experience, I had all these symbols in my head, and I didn't know what to do with them. And she asked me to write them down, so I did. And you have to understand, I grew up with severe dyslexia. I have had a hard time spelling or reading, or even worse time with mathematics. I have, if I'm lucky, maybe a fifth or sixth grade, and that's probably even less than that math level. And I'm embarrassed to say that I have to get help with long division from my stepkids. But
that's why they developed calculators. That's what I tell my kids.
Exactly. In fact, I use it quite a bit even now. But under regression, I remember writing these symbols down, and I ended up writing this full page of these symbols in like 30 seconds. And, you know, when I kind of snapped out of it or woke up, you know, the people that were there, their mouths just dropped open. And we sent this off to physicists, and it actually meant something. And the first little equation there was an electron structure for element 115, which at the time, way back then, didn't exist yet. They didn't even have an equation for it, from what I understand. It was 2 years later somebody sent me a newspaper clipping that Russians finally invented element 115. So, who knows?
Now, I also understand that you drew a map of the planetary alignment corresponding with September the 21st, 2012.
Yeah, and that's another thing that always kind of bugged me too. You know, whatever these things are, they are way more advanced than you or I, and they seem to be able to know what's going to happen in the future. At least that's what I believe.
Yeah.
You know, and they don't talk like you or I do, and you know, without sounding too crazy, we talk linearly. We say one word after the other. These things have an ability where they can convey large amounts of information in just one thought. In fact, with my first abduction experience, I was sitting on the table after they did these experimental things. I was absolutely terrified. And the being leaned forward and literally an explosion of thought filled my head and knocked me off the table. And I got up and I was just in absolute shock. And this person thing, whatever, stepped back, kind of tilted their head as if to say, okay, you dumb idiot, we're going to try this one step at a time, and then bam, 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 thought after thought after. And let me tell you, it was very humbling because, you know, at that point I realized that it really wasn't all about us, you know, that, and I also realized that if these things were truly hostile, they could have taken us out a long time ago. And I know for a fact they've been here for thousands of years. There's so much evidence.
So my next question was going to be, do you think that these visitors, for a lack of a better word, actually mean to harm us?
You know, I believe that there's good and bad up there, just like there's good and bad here. But if they wanted to harm us, they would have. I still have issues with what their agenda is. Let's face it, they are taking us against their will. But you know, they've never really seriously hurt me.
Do we know who they are?
There are three. I know of three different types for sure. I've experienced, for sure. I've never really actually seen what they call a gray, though. I've seen things that are similar, but they're not gray. They're more kind of a bluish taupe-colored, and they just don't really fit the same thing. My first abduction experience, and if you buy the book, for anybody that's listening, if they buy the book, they'll get to see pictures and stuff. I call them possum people. They don't look like grays. In fact, they look more like us, except they're very skinny. The one was a female because, well, let's face it, she had boobs, which is not typical of an alien. But they have really big, slanted blue eyes.
Blue eyes?
Blue, almost day-glow blue eyes.
Hey, Stan, you and I have to take a commercial break. Please stand by. Once again, thank you very much for joining us tonight. And I also thank Jennifer at Llewellyn Publishing for helping make this interview possible. Stan Romanek is his name. His website is stanromanek.com, and he is the author of Messages, the world's most documented extraterrestrial contact story. Stan will be back with me on the other side of this commercial break as the X Zone continues live and around the world on the Talkstar Radio.
This is the X Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
19 Sergeant Central. 19 Sergeant check. Officers on the scene.
Hi, I'm Larry Lawson, host of Paranormal Stakeout. With over 36 years in law enforcement, I have learned a few things. The most important is the proper gathering and preservation of evidence is vital to putting the bad guy behind bars. It's no different in the world of paranormal investigation. Whether it's the search for the afterlife, cryptozoology, UFOs, and extraterrestrials, how we gather the evidence, preserve that evidence, and present it to a jury of our peers will make the ultimate difference in proving the existence of worlds and entities that are beyond our imagination. Join me, Larry Lawson, every week on Paranormal Stakeout when, along with my guests, we'll take a journey to prove with indisputable evidence what man has struggled to believe for centuries. Go to xzbn.net for the broadcast schedule and check me out at paranormalstakeout.com.
True healing must address 4 levels: physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual, for us to live joyful and productive lives. We tend to treat 3 of the 4, leaving the spiritual languishing. If you're tired of the same dysfunctional patterns cropping up in your life, Soul Balancing is for you. Trixie Phelps, owner and founder of Soul Balancing, is a naturally gifted energy healer trained in numerous esoteric forms, including shamanism. Trixie has created a powerful modality that safely and effectively clears your energetic field. A soul balancing session can remove interference, heal trauma, and restore your hope. Contact Trixie for a life-changing long-distance session today, www.soulbalancing.world.
Stan Romanek's our guest, www.stanromanek.com. And Stan, has there been any physiological changes to your body? Has there been any deviance in your blood counts? Has there been anything that a physiological examination has shown based on your encounters both on this planet and elsewhere with these ETs?
Yes. When this all started, I was fairly healthy. Now I'm actually disabled from a bizarre blood sugar disorder that even to this day they can't figure out. Also, there's something to do with creatinine levels are screwy. My creatinine levels are extremely high all the time. And that's pretty typical of abductees. They don't know why. They don't know what.
I know.
There's a few markers that always seem to come up when people get abducted. And I don't know why, but it is what it is.
What would you like to tell the audience listening to you around the world right now about your case and about the aliens?
Well, that it's real. And the reason I continue to do this is to try to get people to understand. And, if I can become a believer, and I was a very serious skeptic. In fact, I was a mean skeptic. If people came up to me and told me they believed in ghosts or UFOs or extraterrestrials, I'd push them away and just tell them they were crazy. But if I can become a believer, anybody can. I mean, there's so much out there. Every country in the almost every country in the world has opened their books to this stuff, including the Vatican recently, which absolutely amazed me. And they're telling everybody they've known about it for quite some time.
Well, I don't think they've actually come out and said that extraterrestrials exist.
I met the people, Monsignor Balducci.
Yes.
You can go to my website and...
No, that's all right. I believe you. But once again, Senior Balducci did not, at that time, echo the feelings of the Vatican. And to the best of my knowledge, the Vatican has never come out and said that they actually do confirm that ETs are real.
Well, that's not what I'm getting. I mean, there's documentation that, maybe you're right, but the documentation I have states that, they believe that it is real.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe there's certain parts of the Vatican that believe it and certain parts that don't, just like with anybody. There's certain people in the United States and in Canada that believe it and certain people that don't. I know what I'm experiencing is real. There were times I wished it wasn't real, but for whatever reason, it seems to happen most of the time when people are around, so I don't really have to explain myself.
Hey, Stan, we've run out of time for tonight. I want to thank you very much for joining us, and I wish you much success in the future. Good luck, and when you find out any more information, let us know. We'll love to have you back on the show.
Sure thing. Well, thank you for having me.
Take care of yourself, and once again, we also thank Jennifer at Llewellyn for helping make this interview possible. The web address for Stan Romanek is www.stanromanek.com. That's stanromanek.com. When I come back from this commercial break, on the other side, at 6.5 minutes past, April Sharon will be my special guest. We're going to be talking about New Awakenings as the X Zone continues live and around the world on the Talkstar Radio Network from our studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada.